Well, let's get more perspectives and analyses on the drought and water security situation in Africa. I'm joined by David Gatende. He's the Group Chief Executive Officer at Davies and Shirtliff, a leading water and energy solutions company in East Africa with a presence in over 10 countries on the continent. David, welcome to The Link. Now,
thank you for having me, Beatrice.
Kenya, of course, is taking a breath of fresh air now with the onset of the rains, but Kenya has also suffered a recent drought. So what measures are being put in place to ensure that there is better water access for Kenya and for its citizens?
There are a number of things that are being done, and I think one of the ones I could highlight is reforestation. You remember a number of years ago we had problems when people were settled in the water towers where Kenya gets a lot of its water, and in fact I believe something like 70% of the water that goes into Lake Victoria comes from the Kenyan highlands. And so that's one thing that is being done. Reforestation, there's a lot of talk about in social media. Everybody wants to plant trees, and that's a good thing. We're also re-establishing wetlands. You know, there are places that traditionally had a lot of water in the past, but then people have settled there, and that's not a good thing. And then reconnecting rivers to the floodplains, that's another very important thing. And then establishing dams, especially on a national level and also at county level. That's something that our water minister has been talking about. And even on private farms and individuals, you can have water pans just to allow the conservation of water. So there's a fair bit being done.
There's a fair bit being done, though, but it's not all up to man here, because climate change has also played its part. Africa is the worst continent affected at this point by climate change, although it is a very small emitter of pollution here. So how important is it for countries on the continent, African countries, to ensure that they can fast-track green projects to ensure sustainability?
It is vitally important, Beatrice. It's vitally important because although we are worst affected more than perhaps some of the other continents, we are more abundantly blessed because we have so much sun. You know, Africa is straddles the equator. So half the countries are above and half below. And so harnessing that makes so much sense. I know that there are countries as far down as Australia that use a lot of solar, as far north as the Scandinavian countries in Germany, and they put their solar modules facing the sun, and then they've got to track it across the year so that they can capture the sun. Well, what we have to do is just simply point our solar modules up, and we will capture about as much as 12 hours of sun. And so it makes sense. I think many people are not aware of the fact that the cost of solar modules has really come down. From about 7-8 years ago, the price is now about 10% of what it was. And so the cost of powering things, whether it is solar energy, for heating, for pumping, for lighting, for storage, that's all much, much more affordable than it used to be.
And coming back, though, to accessibility of water, many people on the continent still do not have access to clean and safe drinking water. Is enough, though, being done in terms of funding that for the populations? No,
I wouldn't say there's enough being done. But I heard something a little earlier that was signed yesterday, the African Free Trade Agreement by 44 presidents across Africa. And that was just yesterday in Kigali, in Rwanda. That was very exciting because I think that opens up the possibility for African countries to begin to do more trade amongst themselves, and there are things we can learn from each other. For instance, in Egypt, you know, they don't have a lot of water. In the Sahel countries, they are very much more water scarce than we are here in Kenya, and even in Cape Town in South Africa. You've just run a story on that, and they have lessons they can teach the rest of us. Let's not wait until we're out of water, but in the meantime we can learn to reduce our wastage of water, we can learn to recycle the water, and we can learn to reuse it. I think that's something that all Africans can take to heart and do something about the situation before it's too late.
All right, David Gatende, we'll leave it there for the moment, but thank you very much for joining us here on The Link.